Hi everyone, I'm Sarika and today we are talking to our Lean Change Facilitator, Ken Rickard. Hey Ken.
Hey, how you doing?
Fantastic. How about yourself?
I'm doing great. Thanks for asking.
Thanks, Ken. I think I'd like to start by asking you, tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell your audience today a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I work for a company called Insight. We're a consulting firm that's based out of Phoenix, Arizona. For Insight, I am one of our enterprise coaches where I do coaching nationally for our clients, and also some internal coaching as well in order to help us modernize our consulting practice. And I guess in addition to that, I mean, obviously I'm a Lean Change facilitator, a Management 3.0 facilitator, and also I can teach a few different of the ICAgile classes, mainly the ones that are in the enterprise coaching realm, which is the Coaching Agile Transitions, the CAT class, and the ENT class, which is the Agility and the Enterprise class.
Awesome. That's a lot of teaching that you're doing. I'm going to pick on a couple of them one by one. So let me start first by asking you, what prompted you to obviously take the Lean Change workshop yourself, given that you're a facilitator now?
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about your journey to becoming a Lean Change facilitator.
Yeah, I think it probably starts a year and a half or so ago, maybe between a year and a half, 2 years ago. We were, as a company, we obviously have traditional kind of OCM practices as well. And we have an Agile practice, and we were attempting to try to figure out how we get our change practices to work well with our Agile practices. And at the time, we were using more traditional practices, or at least that was where our expertise was. I think what I was doing is I was attempting to try to find where in the world something that would fit better with Agile was, and I started searching around the internet and had seen Lean Change a few times in the past and hadn't really paid a lot of attention to it. But I was at a little bit of a desperate place. I really needed something that was going to work well with our Agile practices. And I went back to Lean Change Management and looked a little deeper, and found it to be very much what I was needing at the time, even though in the past I had kind of ignored it. And the more I dug into it, the more I realized it was very close to what I was already doing. It gave me kind of a structure to be able to almost like execute in a way, a nice light structure to be able to execute through the Lean Change cycle and the 5 universals of change and those kind of things. But it felt so close to home, I think, from an Agile perspective and from a Lean startup perspective. I think that's what immediately drew me to it when I first actually dug into it, beyond just the superficial stuff.
Right. And I remember when we briefly spoke at that time, you weren't planning to become a facilitator. So I'm curious, what prompted you to become a facilitator?
Yeah, I think I've gone through kind of like three metamorphoses, I guess, of a profession over the decades. I started out as a developer and an architect and kind of a manager of BI teams in the data and analytics space, and got into Scrum Mastering and some Agile coaching kind of as a second go at a profession. And then here in the last couple of years, has started to transition more into the enterprise coaching and the change realm. And I think it was just that desire for me to want to help people with change more effectively that wound up getting me into the position where I felt like I like to teach. Obviously, you can see I've got a number of teaching licenses I talked about in the beginning. But it was the change aspect of it that is, like I said, more rooted in Agile, more rooted in Lean and Lean startup thinking, as well as complexity thinking. Those are the things that are really kind of at the core of my passions. And so once I found it, I was like, yes, please, more of that. So, yeah.
Brilliant. So maybe we jog you down the memory lane a little bit and figure out,
Sure.
When did you really get hit by this change bug, if we can call it that?
Well, I guess I like to say that it kind of happened over a really long period of time, because I think if we go back and look at the kind of data and analytics developer days, the architect days, the manager days, those things were all done in very traditional aspects, traditional companies, top-down decision-making, top-down change. all those things were kind of trickling down through the organizations that I had worked for in the past. Being at the bottom of those organizations, that was really frustrating for me. And I think that was the vehicle, or the fuel, if you will, over kind of that first decade, a little bit over that, maybe beyond that decade of my professional career, that that frustration ultimately fueled me to start to work towards change. Even as a Scrum Master back in the day, and then as an Agile Coach later, those things are rooted in change. And so it was just a graduation of, okay, now I want to focus beyond Agile coaching. I want to focus more on enterprise coaching and helping organizations change effectively.
Awesome. Now, I like what I heard from your journey, but then I'm curious, your journey's been interestingly different from a lot of others that we see in the lean change space, coming from the traditional backgrounds yourself, and then, evolving to, or being in the space of how do we navigate complexity using lean change, if I could call it that. And you spoke about all those amazing things of lean startup and complexity thinking that you already have as a toolkit, if I may say that. I'm curious, what kind of audience do you see coming to these kind of workshops that you've been now conducting for the past couple of years?
Yeah, it's it's a wide range. I think we get kind of more traditional OCM practitioners that are looking to find a new experience or a more modern approach to helping their organizations handle change and effectively respond to it. And I think it's a bunch of Agile coaches as well. We actually send a good bit of our insight coaches and Scrum Masters, even business analysts, and we've had project managers come and take the Lean Change course as well. So there's a pretty wide range of folks that ultimately I see in the classes, but it does, because of its roots in Agile and Lean, I think we tend to get a good bit of Agile coaches and Scrum Masters and so on as well. Yeah.
Nice. I'll go back to what you shared earlier in your introduction, talking about the different ranges of certificates, or the teaching licenses, as you called it. Mm-hmm. And I'm curious because, of course, you're authorized to teach ICP-CAT, which is Coaching Agile Transitions, and ICP-ENT. So how does this combination of, ENT, CAT, and Lean Change work for you?
Yeah, I think the thing that I really like about it is that where you can go take a Lean Change class and learn the basics and the foundations, the ICP class really kind of help take that to the next level. So with the agility in the enterprise, the ENT class is going to teach you more about the greater scope of agility within an organization at that enterprise level. And what are the mechanisms by which we can assess that, understand it? How can we help leadership who's up? Obviously, is pretty important within an organization as far as how decisions are made and how change is implemented within an organization. How can we help those role types become more effective with their behaviors as about implementing change? And then the CAT class, the Coaching Agile Transitions, really tries to dig into, okay, if I'm a coach and I'm trying to help a company transition from where they are now to whatever that next stepping stone is, what does that transition look like? What tools and techniques can I use that are more in the change world that I may not be aware of, that I'm not using in the Agile space or in the Scrum space as a coach or as a Scrum Master? So it really does kind of bridge the gap between Agile and Scrum on one side versus a more modern skill set and set of practices over on the change side for Lean Change.
Interesting. So if somebody is really looking to participate in, let's say, all of these workshops, is there like an order or so let's say if I want to go for both ICP-CAT and ENT, would you think there's a specific logical order I should pick on?
Well, I'll give you my experience, and then I'll tell you kind of, I think, the way it's laid out on the ICAgile website. I think on the ICAgile website, it actually lists them in an order of the ENT, and then you take the CAT.
Right.
I'm apparently different, and then I took the CAT class first, and then I took the ENT class later. And I think that, I don't think I suffered any by doing it that way, kind of the opposite order of what is laid out on ICAgile's website. The ENT class is probably, I would pretty safe to say, I think it was my favorite class I've ever taken. I just love the content that's in there, and that it's based on use cases, and it's based on these fictitious companies that you're trying to merge together and figure out what those techniques are. And the CAT class was really about trying to dig into the practices of lean change deeper than I had in the past. So I think those two things would be what I would say about them. And I think you can take them in either order if you want. If you're trying to tackle agility in the enterprise as your first goal, and you already know some things about coaching, and maybe you've got enough of a background in lean change, or you at least understand it at a superficial level, maybe the ENT class is good for you first. If not, and you want to dig more into the coaching practices and how you help companies transition, then the CAT class would probably be best first.
Awesome. I think that leads me to another question, because these are ICAgile trainings, right? And a lot of people are offering these. And you bring in this, I would say, powerful combo of lean change management with it. So what kind of value add do you see popping in with that for anybody who'd like to take that?
Yeah, I think, we, at least for myself, and I know, some of the folks who have come through the class, we don't often think about change as being part of Agile and Scrum. I mean, some people probably do, but I don't know that, for all of the people that are involved with Scrum Mastering and Agile coaching, if they're really thinking through that lens of change. And what the CAT class and the ENT class being kind of viewed or looked at through the lens of lean change does for you is that it really helps you focus on this idea that we can't force people to do something that they don't want to do, or that they're uncomfortable in doing, or that they're just learning and they're working at a particular pace that's not the pace that you'd like them to go at. But what we can do is we can help to facilitate that change through some techniques and some practices that will help us make sure that we're showing up as a true coach, as a guide, to help them work their way at their own natural pace through that change, given the objectives that they're trying to accomplish at the time. Versus, I know for me, for sure, back in the day when I was first learning Scrum Mastering and Agile, I very much wanted to take the things that I had learned and the beliefs that I had and essentially apply it to other people, so that they would know the same things that I would know and do it in the same way that I knew how to do them. And that didn't always work for people. They weren't always looking to learn things in the way that I learned them and or do them in the way that I did them. So, there was certainly times when in the past I had kind of taken an approach where I needed to learn my own mistakes and then ultimately end up growing up from there. And I think lean change, when I got to lean change, it really opened my eyes a lot towards that kind of more of a facilitator or a guide version of coaching versus me being somebody who's there to try to tell somebody what to do and how to do it.
Awesome. Which logically gets me into the wrapping questions, because you're already talking about stances that, you started to shift. Yeah. And I think, it would be great to know if you had to give some advice to the change agents out there, what would be your awesome advice?
Yeah, I think the thing I've really been trying to focus on over the past couple of years has been patience. I think that's, just calm patience. Like I said, people aren't going to move at the pace you'd like them to move at. They're going to move at their pace, and they're going to do things in their way. And I think the thing that Lean Change really taught me was to focus on making small improvements, taking that kind of progress over perfection route. And if we can do that, we can show up and try to discover our way forward, how we want to help them change. We're there in the driver's seat and we're in the back seat, providing the guardrails and the boundaries so that they don't drive off the cliff, as opposed to in the front seat and the driver's seat with the GPS on, making sure that they're heading to the destination that we'd like them to get to. And I think that's ultimately what I think I've learned over these past couple of years as I've dug more into Lean Change and the ICAgile classes and so on.
Awesome. Love that.
Yeah.
Okay. One other question that comes to me with this wrap up is, if somebody needs to reach out to you online, how and where do they reach you?
Yeah, on LinkedIn, you can find me in the search. You can just type in Ken, Rickard, and Insight. That'll take you right to me on LinkedIn. You can also find my Lean Change and my ICAgile classes on my leanchange.org profile at leanchange.org/Ken.
Thanks a lot, Ken. This was fun talking to you, and I hope to see you again soon.
All right, yeah, enjoyed it. Thanks. Talk to you soon.